Today's guest has quietly built something remarkable from his bedroom in Boyle. He has over 127,000 subscribers on YouTube, a silver play button on his wall, and a video approaching 7 million views. Most people in town had no idea. His name is David McGee, son of Brendan, who we've had on the podcast before. What David has built on YouTube will genuinely surprise you. Welcome to episode number 89 of The Voices of Boyle. David, you're very welcome to The Voices of Boyle. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks for having me.
Very welcome. David, we have a lot to talk about, a few different topics that we're going to get into. Mainly, you know, my reason for contacting you a few months ago to come on was because I saw your excellent video on that you made of, I think, one or two of them on the hot air balloons out in Lough Key in September. So we're going to get into that, your YouTube channel, which I think will surprise a lot of people when they hear it. But to start off, let us get back to the beginning. Where in Boyle did you grow up?
So I grew up kind of in the centre of town, really, or just out by Abbeytown. Kind of lived in the same house all my life, just beside the boys' school, just a little estate there. And it was always kind of a great place because, you know, when we were going to school at the time, we just walk over, you know, not even a 1 minute walk and you're in the door basically. So it was always a lovely place to grow up. You know, there was lots of... it's great when you had friends over and stuff, lots of room to play, like, and all that.
And David, what place or places in Boyle feel most tied to your childhood days?
I think definitely, you know, my dad's shop would be one of them, you know, in town when we'd be kind of, you know, after school or stuff, you know, he might be still working, so we'd be in there with kind of granny and granddad in the house upstairs. That'd definitely be one place. And another, probably kind of, you know, out with friends kind of in the pleasure grounds at the time. You know, when we were growing up, it had just kind of got completely redone and they put in that basketball court and all the swings and the slides. So yeah, I remember being in there a fair bit when I was younger.
Yeah. And you mentioned there about your granddad, Dick.
Yeah.
A great man.
Absolutely brilliant man, yeah.
Because I wasn't sure when he passed away, were you because you were early 2000s, so
yeah, so I was just in first year of secondary school at the time. So
right, okay,
yeah.
So you have great memories then.
I do, yeah.
And do you think, we're going to get into that obviously, but with the photography and stuff, would he have been a big influence on that?
Definitely, yeah. I think, like, even, you know, when we were younger, he used to record himself reading stories and put them on like mixtapes, you know, like kind of Disney stories, Beauty and the Beast, kind of all that stuff, and we listened to them when we were younger. And he definitely had that kind of broadcast voice and that kind of, you know, even when I'm in the shop, sometimes his book is still there with like kind of pictures of Boyle from, you know, going back years and years, you know. And definitely, I think looking at all them pictures when I was younger and still looking at them today, definitely I can see that was kind of a kickstart to getting interested in that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And I think there isn't too many houses in Boyle now that wouldn't have a picture of some sort relating to your granddad's work.
Yeah.
You know, I even have a load of the CDs.
Oh, yeah.
I think that your dad made.
He did,
50s,
yeah.
60s and 70s and there's so many photos.
Yeah, it's very well documented town when it comes to like pictures and stuff, you know.
And your dad, Brendan, also told me that he has, on his podcast, on his episode, he said that he has tons of undeveloped photos as well from his dad. So there's still a treasure trove of stuff that needs to get out.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Definitely.
So Dave, a normal Saturday then for you as a kid around Boyle, what would that entail?
Well, you know, it was a great thing when we were younger, you know, you didn't have to worry about like work or homework, schoolwork, any of that. So like, you know, it'd be usually going to a friend's house or a friend coming over to mine. And I suppose like when we were younger, we used to always kind of make films and stories and stuff like that. I always used to love, you know, taking either my mom's phone or my dad's like camcorder at the time, and, you know, we'd make up a random story about something and, you know, we'd star in it, we'd, you know, record it, then we'd edit it and throw it together like on Windows Movie Maker and just have a laugh kind of, you know.
Yeah. And then going into school days, David, you went to primary and secondary school in town.
Yeah, so I went to the convent first for the first few years, you know, and then second class you move up to the boys' school. It was at the time. They've both now joined together recently, but it was St. Joseph's Boys' School at the time, and then Abbey Community College for secondary school.
Yeah. And what did you like school?
Yeah, it was definitely, you know, it was just great because when we were in the boys' school, you know, there was only 15, 16 of us lads kind of in the class together. So it was a very kind of tight, group of lads, and they all stuck together then when it came to secondary school. So like it was with the same group of people kind of for the whole school cycle, and it was nice, got close to a lot of them, and still I'm friends with a lot of them today. So
that's great. Yeah. And subjects wise, then, had you a favorite subject or a couple of subjects?
Yeah, in secondary school, like it was kind of anything that was like kind of practical work. So like, construction, woodwork, metalwork, art and stuff was stuff I was doing. I think that's kind of when the, ideas for like, media and like more animation and video editing and all that kind of is where that kind of blossomed.
That's so you were, as you said, those kind of ideas and skills were starting to develop then.
Yeah, definitely.
And had you any favorite teacher or teachers that you were?
Yeah, definitely one teacher that stands out to me, and he was only a substitute at the time. We only had him I don't even think we had him for a full year. It was more for kind of a couple of months, but he was a substitute English teacher that we had for I think it was second year of secondary school. Mr. Walsh was his name. Just he was big into history as well, and I'm a big history person as well.
Yeah.
And just when we were doing our Shakespeare and stuff as well, it was kind of it was very interesting. He had a passion for it, and he did lots of great stuff in the school for the students as well. We did a lot of charity things, and he hosted like a big party one day where we all like played Mario Kart in a tournament. You had to pay like €2 to enter, and then the winner got like a €50 voucher for Smiths. It was great, like, and all the money went to charity as well. So
great.
He was great for doing stuff like that.
You mentioned there, I think, something about musicals or stuff like that in school.
Yeah, so very lucky in the school we're able to do musicals. So when I was there, I had the opportunity to do two. Back to the 80s was the first one. I was in second year at the time. And I kind of got into the kind of backstage kind of crew and all that during that. So, making props, working backstage, moving stuff around, helping the cast with whatever they needed. So Back to the 80s was the first one. And then All Shook Up was the second one I did. That was in TY. And I think that was a really big moment because, we were in TY and we were given a lot of kind of freedom to kind of help with the production, and it was really hands-on for us. I did it with another friend, Luke, and we kind of became known as the tech team. We were kind of taking care of everything up until the production started, and even when the production ended, we were, in there late nights, putting stuff together, taking things down, and I think that's definitely where my interest for like, film, like working as a film crew and doing like theatre and technical theatre productions definitely grew during that time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, was it something that you actively thought, yeah, I would like to do this after school, school and college? This is like, I could see a potential career in this kind of avenue.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially after doing All Shook Up, like, being able to like be there every night, running around kind of, it's a really fast paced environment working like in technical and backstage stuff because it's all live as well, especially for a theatre production. So you're kind of on the go. There's no sitting down. You have to be running around. And I love that kind of environment, the fast pace.
Yeah. So David, you touched on there earlier about the, when you were younger, started making films with your couple of your friends and that, and putting them together. What were those shoots like back then?
Oh, it was brilliant. Like, there'd be some fallouts over them, we'd get bossy with each other, like I always loved to kind of direct them and also be the cameraman at the same time. And then they'd usually star in it. And, sometimes then there'd be scenes where I'd have to be in it. So we'd have to flip around and, they might be holding the camera on or something. And I'd give out, being like, oh, you're holding a portrait, not landscape, but it was brilliant. Like there's one that I remember really well. It was called Stealing is what we called it. And it was like, I'm not sure if you remember years ago, but there was an ad that used to be on DVDs about piracy.
Yes, I do remember.
And it was like, the heavy metal music, and it's like, you shouldn't steal a car and all this. And we remade that as one of them. And we put our own twist on it with our own music and stuff. And I think I still have it. And, sometimes I stuck it on there a while ago and I got a great laugh out of it because, you can just see the innocence, but you can also just see like what we were up to kind of scheming. We had our own little plan with it, but it was brilliant.
And what sort of equipment and camera were you using?
So back then it was like, when I was younger, anything I could get my hands on that had a camera on it, whether it was like, one of my mum or dad's old phones at the time, or my dad had a few like handy cams, like, mixtape cameras and stuff with mini discs. So anything like that I could get my hands on, that could record and take pictures, I would use. I even at one point had a Nintendo 3DS that had a camera built into it, and it could only record up to 30 seconds in a single clip. So we had to always be really quick, and then, recording in 30-second increments, and then joining it all up together and editing.
And you used Windows, was it, for that?
Windows Movie Maker was the first thing. Yeah, it was it's a brilliant piece of software, I have to say.
I know, because even I hear a lot of people still on about it, like for software back in those days, it was ahead of its game.
Yeah, and they even they discontinued it there, and I think it was like 2012 or something. Because they didn't want people using it anymore, because they said it wasn't safe for some reason. But like, I mean, it got to the point where I remember I needed it for something, and I was like, I need to get this program back, and I had to go on the internet and like search for it and re-download it, because it's still useful for doing stuff like credits and titles and all that, and it's really user friendly, which I think is really important, because it can be really scary opening a video editor and seeing all the buttons and the graphs and everything.
Like I used Final Cut, but I also started using what's that other one that's really popular now?
Would it be DaVinci Resolve?
No, there's another one. It's more oh God, I can't remember. I haven't used it obviously that much. It was it the creators of TikTok had created this?
Oh, CapCut.
Yeah, I've used that.
Yeah.
Now that's extremely easy.
Yeah.
But it can be very, very overwhelming.
Yeah,
as well.
CapCut started as a mobile phone video editor, because it was tailored to people like for TikTok and stuff, to edit their videos. And then they released a desktop version of it. And I haven't personally used it myself, but I know some of my friends used it for like projects for them and college and stuff, when they were editing stuff for college, and they loved it. They thought it was great.
It's kind of got everything built in for you, as opposed to like a lot of the stuff that you would have had to do on Final Cut, for example, and then use After Effects. Can all be done in CapCut.
Exactly.
And it's just, I suppose that's the way it's going to eventually go anyway. There's going to be more AI built into this stuff,
definitely.
so that it makes things maybe easier. I know it takes away some of the kind of the old, it's like, as I say, film photography.
Definitely.
And digital,
absolutely.
But and so, David, were you drawn more to acting, directing, or editing, or is there a kind of
there was definitely kind of like an interest in all the areas, but I think as I grew up, kind of it leaned more towards the directing and more of the kind of like backstage kind of technical side rather than the acting. I did do a brief bit of acting with the Gaiety School of Acting before COVID hit, but I still do a bit of voice acting from time to time, but definitely the technical side and like directing would be more of my interest.
Okay. And then moving on, David, I know you have a big interest in the Titanic.
Yes.
So where did that fascination start, and what hooked you to it?
God, yeah, I remember, I think I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and we had a babysitter at the house watching us one night, and they were just flicking through on the television to all the channels, and I just remember I was, sitting there on the floor just watching all the channels flick by, and out of nowhere this big ship that's like sticking out of the sky halfway underwater, with people sliding down it and everything, just comes up on the screen. I'm like, what is that? I've never seen this in my life. And then the babysitter's like, oh, this is Titanic. And she flicked it off pretty quick, because it was, it's pretty, for a young person to watch that kind of a film, there's a bits in it that aren't really appropriate, but I was fascinated by it. And then I had to ask Mum and Dad when I got home, like, what's the Titanic? And, it just started a snowball of, the Titanic. And then it got to the point, you realize, oh, there's more than just the Titanic. There's, other ships too. But definitely it was Titanic that started it.
Yeah. And is there one, like, you obviously know a lot about the history of it and all that. Is there a misconception that you find people, that you wish people understood better about the Titanic?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially recently, a lot of misinformation kind of gets spread about it, like rumors and stuff. And, there's lots of documentaries that kind of get produced, and TikTokers essentially that might be saying things that, they're not really checking the facts. And I suppose there's a few things, people are saying that the Titanic never sank is one of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, like,
I know all about it.
It's it's kind of hard to, like, how it's there. It's on the ocean floor. So I mean, like,
did you ever hear the conspiracy of Yeah, because I've heard that one obviously,
Yeah.
and obviously there's a ship on on the
Absolutely,
ocean floor,
yeah.
but they reckon that's the Olympia.
The sister ship,
Yeah, the sister ship. So maybe for people that don't understand or know about that, maybe could you just give a little kind of thing about the Olympia and the Titanic and where that whole misconception comes from?
So basically, when Titanic was built in Belfast, there was two identical ships basically built around the same time, and they were kind of in a class together. So you had the Olympic, the Titanic, and the Britannic. The Olympic was built first, and it had a lot of complications during its career. Like, it kept crashing into other ships, getting damaged. And there is a rumor that when Titanic was built, they swapped the names of the ships, and they actually sank the Olympic under the Titanic's name to try and get insurance money, like, to claim, don't sink the brand new ship, sink the damaged one and take the money and, build another one then down the line. But definitely, it's not something I believe in whatsoever. Like, anytime I see kind of any articles about it, I'm just like, oh God, here we go again.
Yeah.
Because, the more that you talk about it, the more people find out and the more they look into it. And it's just like, there isn't really, we've seen the submarines go down, they've been to the wreck, and I think one important thing is the ships didn't look 100% identical. They did have their own kind of key differences. And even though the wreck is so old, we can still see them differences, and like comparing them, like you can tell it is Titanic that's on the ground down there. It's like Olympic, definitely.
And would it be a case, David, to the untrained eye, the two ships would be identical, or would it be
absolutely
right?
Yeah, to the untrained eye, if you pulled up two pictures and put them together, you wouldn't really know.
Okay,
you'd have to kind of like look in at the the windows. The windows are kind of different shapes and stuff, but you'd have to have a trained eye.
Okay,
definitely.
Well, then, so that's obviously maybe where that kind of those kind of rumors and
absolutely.
And so, do you? I know you create some Titanic related work that we'll get into, and do you then feel it's your responsibility to get those facts right when you're creating that content?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially like when I was younger, I was kind of just oh, here's a video of Titanic, but as I got older, I was like, and more people started watching it, I was like, I have to make sure I kind of nail this. I don't want to be sinking it the wrong way, or there was one thing that I think is really important is the death toll is something that has changed a lot over the years. Some people say 1,500, some people say, oh, it was 1,470 or 1,496. And, if you go look back at some of my older videos, you'll see that number does change because, I want to make sure that it's right. But they finally settled on a number which was 1,496. So that's the one that I've been going with for that key point for the last few years. But definitely, I do want to make sure that, to the best of my ability, that I can make it as accurate as possible.
Yeah. And obviously then we're going to get into, which I'm very interested in, but your YouTube videos. So before we get into your current channel that you have, you started creating YouTube content in 2011, I believe.
I did, yeah.
Which was very, like, YouTube was only out, I think, 2009, wasn't it, I think?
That's when it went public, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so you were in at the very early stages. Yeah. So, what were you uploading back then?
Oh, God, it was, so it was all my friends, we kind of were getting into, Xbox and stuff, so we were playing, like, Minecraft, or any kind of games, Call of Duty, any of the older games at the time. But I didn't even have a capture card for the Xbox back then, so what I used to do was set up a camera recording the TV and having me shouting over it in the background screaming. But it was brilliant. And I was able to somehow, with the quality of those videos being terrible, I was somehow able to grow that to around 50 or 60 followers. And of course then I had actually started doing the ship animations on that channel. But the channel was, at the point where I started the second one, that channel was coming up to nearly 5 years old. And I was like, I kind of want to restart, different name, different branding kind of, and take it from there,
Okay, and so you also did some urban exploration videos as well.
Yeah, so there was, exploring kind of the local stuff around the town stuff, got a wee skint in the Royal Hotel when it was still, before they got done up again recently, and even going out to Castle Island, we used to go out on the rental rowboats and stuff, and just kind of I'd love to go around kind of the old buildings that have a past and kind of look at them.
And were those videos getting hits back then even?
Kind of like on, it was on the older channel. So, I mean, those 50 or 60 people were definitely looking at them. Yeah. At that point, though, I wasn't really doing it for the attention. I was just kind of, putting up because like this is something I'm interested in. If other people are great, but if not, that's totally fine.
Yeah, of course. And then looking back, David, what does those early uploads teach you about that like applies still today? I know obviously you have a much bigger channel now, but do some principles still apply now as they did back then when it comes to content upload?
Absolutely. Like something I learned from the get-go is quality control. Making sure like I looking back at the old videos, you can hear me like opening doors, closing doors in the background, like the camera falls over in some of them, like, and everything. But, they felt really rushed. And I don't know why they felt so rushed because we were kids at the time, we had all the time in the world. So I don't know why we were rushing to get these out. But definitely, on the new channel and stuff, that's something I definitely look after is, making sure that, the audio sounds good, the editing is lined up, the lighting, make sure it's all right.
Yeah. So your current channel, Blue Star Line.
Yeah.
And for anyone, I'd be putting up all links to this stuff on the blog post anyway that goes along with this. But you currently have 127,000 subscribers, which is phenomenal. Like, as I said to you before we started recording, I don't know anyone else, that has a YouTube channel. Even as niche as it may be, it's still over 100,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
That's monumental. Like, and you have that little play. What's the actual that you get when you hit
the award? Yeah, it's like silver play button plaque kind of thing. So like what I like to think of it is back in the day when like a record label would produce like a hit, and they get that golden record in the frame. That's kind of what I think of it as being. It's basically a play button. In a frame, kind of like as a plaque, and it has your name on it and stuff. And
I'm sure anyone that knows anything, like they would have seen one at some stage on some.
Oh, absolutely! Someone videoing themselves opening it up or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even if you're subscribed to any channels on YouTube, big channels like yours, you'll have seen that some stage the owner proudly displaying that.
Definitely,
because it is such an achievement to hit. Because as I said, even for people to try and hit 1,000 subscribers, it's so difficult. And absolutely. I know algorithm and stuff has a lot to play, which we'll probably get into. But how did it start? So how did Blue Line start? It was 2015, I believe.
Yeah, just around the end of 2015. It was the same week that I started secondary school. It was kind of like it was a new start, like new school. And I was like, I'm going to stop the old channel and I'm going to start this channel at the start of secondary school. Let's see how it looks at the end of secondary school. So that's, a 6-year time frame. See what we can do in that time, So it was around the end of 2015, around September. And it started off, it wasn't really animations at the start because, I didn't have a clue at that point. It was more using a ship simulator. So like you could download this ship simulator and you could like record you doing stuff with it, like, set up a camera, make it sync, make it do whatever. So that's what I used originally. And then, kind of, I was hitting limitations with it. And I was like, I want to be able to add people in. I want to be able to, have more realistic visuals and stuff. So that's when I kind of branched out then and started making my own stuff.
Right, yeah. Because as I said, it's very niche.
Definitely is, yeah. And I think at the time when I started doing it, there was only only one other person who was doing similar stuff, and he was in the UK. I got to know him very well. We used to kind of, challenge each other who could get out the best Titanic video each year, because we'd, there'd be a big build up to April around the time of the anniversary. So, like, who could get the better video out and who'd get the better views, and we'd always, be quite competitive with each other. But it was all, it was all good sport.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And it also probably gave you, your reasons to kind of get better content out. You were having that little bit of competition and accountability, I suppose,
absolutely,
in a way.
Yeah.
And so then, because I went through a few of the videos and, like, as I said, very niche, but like obviously people love that stuff. And I can see by the comments, like people they love this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, you're getting some of the history, you're getting what happened. And I looked at one of the Titanic ones you've created, and, you have some of the dialogue from, would it be the Leonardo DiCaprio movie in the background or something? Or was it other?
Oh, if it's the one with the iceberg, that would be commissioned voice actors for that one.
Really?
Yeah. So I would have taken testimonies from, survivor testimonies, what did they say on the night? and then we got a few lads together to kind of read out them lines. So similar enough to what they say in the Titanic film. Yeah. So
well, I actually it was that well done that I actually just presumed that you were able to cut some of the audio or something and put it in. But I mean, that just shows the level of detail that goes into this. So for anyone that's listening, check that out. But where did the name Blue Star Line come from? What was it?
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of misconception online because they think that I'm another Blue Star Line. So I mean, the blue part is I just picked it because of the color blue. But White Star Line, of course, was the owner of the Titanic. So I wanted to go with. I obviously didn't want to call myself White Star Line but Blue Star Line was just the name I chose randomly.
Yeah.
Just thought, why not? Like, kind of,
And like I see, there's like I think maybe 300 and something videos that you have uploaded. Have you? And I'm presuming then you'll know an awful lot about various ship exploration. So, for example, I'm actually just after finishing a book called Madhouse at the End of the Earth by and it's about the Belgica. The Antarctic exploration. That was phenomenal. I meant to look. Do you have a video on that by any chance on the channel?
I don't think I do, and one that I definitely am working on is for another Antarctic one. It's the Endurance. That's one I'm definitely working on. I actually got they released a Lego set for it recently, and I was building. I've yet to build it, but it kind of definitely, I was like, and they only found the wreck of it.
That's right. Recently,
maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah,
and it's in immaculate condition because it's the cold water preserves it. And like that ship was majority made out of wood, and it's like still intact. Like it's crazy,
I think that sank a year before the Titanic did. I think
it was either 1911 or like early 1912. Yeah, it was.
Okay. So they've talk me through typical process that's involved with creating one of these animation videos from the initial idea to uploading the content.
So I suppose when I was younger, I was kind of doing any kind of a video, it could be a fictional story or it could be something based on a true event. Now I kind of just more focus on stuff that's based on a true event. So I suppose it starts on kind of what anniversaries are coming up. So if it's April, that's Titanic's anniversary. So let's just say we're making a video for the Titanic, we have to, I like to try and do multiple videos during the anniversary period. So, one of it sinking, maybe one of it before, hitting the iceberg, one of it aftermath when the survivors are being rescued, the following morning. And I suppose that's where the ideas come from. You kind of jot them down, in a notepad, and then you look at what is available in terms of models, do you have the time, and, you just kind of go with it. Like you throw the model into the renderer, you set up a few keyframes and render out some clips and throw it into editing and throw some music on it or whatever kind of vibe it's going for.
Yeah, and how long would a typical video take to animate?
So it's not really it's more the rendering side that takes longer. But like if you're setting up your keyframes and stuff, you could get that all done in a couple of hours. But then when it comes to the rendering out the clips, because I'm starting to render in higher resolutions. I used to just settle for 1080p, but now we're kind of going for 4K because the expectation is kind of growing. Everyone wants to see everything in 4K these days. Sure. So it can take a couple of days to render out a few seconds of 4K. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Especially if you have like nighttime shots are the worst because you have all the lights and the shadows, and you need a very powerful computer to kind of render it out. And it could take a couple of days to do a couple of seconds worth of clips.
Wow, I didn't think it was that. So there is then just say, for example, a 30-minute animated video that you have in your channel that is using 4K.
Yeah.
How long would that take then for just in rendering? If you say a few days for a few seconds, if you have a couple of minutes
you could be looking at a month nearly for one, especially for one at that time frame. So there was one I actually did it wasn't 30 minutes, it was around 20. It's a real-time syncing animation of the Lusitania. So because the Lusitania sank in 20 minutes. So this animation is the exact same time frame as the ship sinks, and it shows you what was going on in those 20 minutes. And that one took about a month to slap together.
I'm sure there's people listening now that are just absolutely fascinated with ships, like, in general, and the idea, even though they might already be a subscriber, but they'd probably be just lapping this up, going like, "Oh my god, I love this sort of
Yeah.
stuff." You know, do you find that like people, they're just again very niche, but it's something that they're really passionate about?
Yeah, like, there's so many other creators out there as well, and they kind of do similar stuff with other things. So, like, there's another Irish creator I follow, Green Dot Aviation is his name, and he does kind of airplane crashes and he animates them. And it's another niche spot, but like people are really interested in it, and like I think it just brings more passion into it when you see people saying like, "Oh, I enjoyed this." It makes you want to kind of make more.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to quality, what are some non-negotiables when it comes to creating content?
So like for me, it's anything that looks off on the camera when you're setting up the camera to read, like, and you have the ship in the scene, and if it's sinking or if it's just sailing. If I see like a texture flickering, or I see a man walking and he's a few feet walking off the air and he's kind of hovering, or if there's something like that, I'm not impressed. I have to, like, there's been times where I've rendered out clips and, I thought they looked great, and then you watch them back before you put them into edit and you see, oh, there's a man like flying through the sky, or, oh no, there's a propeller that's like in the air or something. And it's just like, you can't have that in it. But yeah, flickering textures is definitely one. You could have the ship sail and then suddenly you just see like a red glow come out the side of it and you're like, no, you can't have that,
The purists that go crazy.
Yeah.
They would.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you see, that's what they're coming to your channel for. They know it's high quality and they're getting the history, the animation, everything all in one, the story.
Yeah.
And that's what they like. So yeah, that's definitely your audience. So tell us a bit about Starlight Media.
So yeah, it was about a year after I started the Blue Star Line, because I was still interested in doing kind of work that, for kind of people, like didn't have to be ship related. It could be, video editing or photography or stuff like that. So that's kind of what Starlight Media focused on, was doing work that it was still animation work, but not necessarily, Titanic or ship related stuff.
Okay. And then you talked about commissions and getting different commissions coming in from. How did they come in? Is it via email, word of mouth, social media?
So definitely it was kind of when Blue Star Line started growing rapidly around just before COVID, more and more people were seeing the videos, but it kind of led to people wanting videos made for their own projects. And one of the first commissions that I did was for an Italian production company. They wanted to do a documentary on the Costa Concordia. And they wanted visuals for that. So that was one of the very first ones I did. And I remember just the excitement of reading the email. I thought it was a scam at first, because I'd never gotten anything like it before. But, we talked more and more over the emails. And then eventually, a couple of months later, you get paid for it. And then they send you an email and it's like, oh, here's your clip on TV, broadcast it to the people over Italy. Like,
that's brilliant.
Yeah. It's a lovely feeling. Yeah.
Of course. So that's interesting. That's how those kind of clips might come about. Someone would, like a company would get in touch, like someone like you, create what they want to fit into the documentary or series. Very interesting. Yeah. And so what would a typical commission package look like? What would you have to provide to them? Like, is it just what they're looking for in a file and that's it?
Yeah, so I've had so many different kinds, but like, it's usually the animation stuff is the most popular kind of commission that I get. And, it depends on, are they looking for just like video, or are they looking for a full edited kind of package of a video, or are they just looking for raw animations that they can put in and edit themselves? And I always tend to, we always make it very clear we have license agreements and stuff. Because, I do offer options of kind of exclusive use, meaning that, those clips are yours. They're not going to be seen anywhere else. Or we can offer clips that are non-exclusive, whereas they're yours for a certain time frame and then they may appear elsewhere down the line in other people's projects or even back on my own channel again.
Okay. And have you ever turned down work?
I don't think so. No. I mean, I'm always excited whenever anything comes through the email. I will, if I can do it, I will,
Yeah.
There was one where it was like just asking for a ridiculous time frame. It was like, oh, we need like 10 clips and we need them in like 2 days. And I was like, it's not realistic.
Not going to happen.
But like, definitely I will give everything a shot when it comes through to me.
Okay. And what would be your biggest lesson that you've learned with dealing with clients? Because, in every industry, there's always a kind of like over back, and can it drag on? And maybe is there tire kickers as well that don't eventually pan out the way they initially had planned?
Yeah, so there was one project where I had someone who wanted me to kind of come on board as their kind of in-house editor for a few videos that they were doing on a series kind of. And, we talked back and forth. We had like meetings, public meetings online and stuff. And it kind of ended up kind of, I was sending them work and they were happy with it, but then they weren't getting back to me. And then I found out that they were using them.
Okay.
And, no payment had been made. And that's when I learned that if I'm going to be showing people, if I'm giving them previews, got to slap a watermark on it,
Definitely.
Especially if payment hasn't been sent beforehand, yeah.
It'd be more common than people think, though, as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Just getting back then to the YouTube channel, because, as I said, not many people would ever experience, if they have a YouTube channel, even hitting 1,000 or 10,000. So to hit 100,000+ followers, subscribers, is pretty huge. What did that feel like when you finally, you got that 100,000?
It was like, it started off as a slow burner. Like, I created the channel and maybe after the first year, we hadn't even hit 100, I don't think. But it was kind of just before COVID, I remember I was uploading videos and, I would upload them maybe noontime, and you'd kind of, you'd go to bed that night, they'd be on maybe, 500 or 600 views, but then you'd wake up the next day and they'd be on 3,000 or 4,000, and you'd be like, ooh, what's going on here, And the great thing about YouTube is if you're one of their users, you can see who's watching them, where they're from, and what kind of their demographic is. And that's when I started seeing that, my videos were being pushed outside of Ireland and big followings in the US and kind of the UK as well.
And how did that make you feel then when you first realised that people worldwide, David, were watching your content, not just people, friends and family, as normal YouTubers kind of say?
Yeah, I think it was really exciting, because I remember getting a letter in the post from Google. It was about 2 years after starting the channel, and they were like, oh, congratulations, you're now eligible for monetization, which means that you can now earn money by uploading these videos, by putting ads on them. And I think that was when it got really exciting, because then I realised, I'm able to upload a video that I like and put it out for people that want to see it, and then I can get paid for doing it, which I thought was phenomenal. And it started off small. It was a couple of euro every month, but it did grow over time.
Absolutely.
And it's a really rewarding experience then, because it's just a lovely feeling to be able to do something you love.
Exactly, and get paid for it too. And you're your own
boss, basically.
You can decide, you can put the foot down or you can slack off. And Dave, when you were getting those initial, couple of thousand views, what do you see was the biggest growth move for you, in getting subscriber count up? I know you kind of don't have any real control over that, but was there anything? Was it more consistent videos? Was it longer videos? Was it more in-depth research? What was the catalyst, do you think?
Definitely, I think it was more in-depth research and like, more time spent on each video when it came to like editing and stuff. I kind of, I was putting out maybe a couple of videos every week when I first started, and then I was like, let's slow it down. Instead of doing maybe 3 or 4, mid-tier videos a week, let's do maybe one, and put more time and more effort into one video a week, and see where that goes. And I remember seeing, like, I'd upload 3 or 4 videos a week back then, and you get a couple of views on each. But then when I started uploading one a week, I was getting more than all of them 3 or 4 videos combined on one video a week, and I realized people prefer this more.
Yeah, like you see a lot of content, you see a lot of algorithm changes on different media platforms, and obviously YouTube is no different. And one of the big kind of sticklers with in the last couple of years is consistency.
Yeah,
and you might, as you did maybe for a solid year, you were uploading videos and there was nothing happening, and then the algorithm was like, okay, he isn't giving up.
Yeah.
we need to kind of give him the kind of rewards that he's put in. So I think a lot of people, so I was just going to ask, if someone from Boyle wanted to start a YouTube channel today, what would be the first 3 things you'd tell them to focus on in whatever niche they're going into?
Yeah, definitely. Like, whatever you're putting up, like, don't worry about the algorithm straight away. Like, it will find you eventually, but like, definitely use stuff, make sure that you're putting the right details like in your title and stuff, using hashtags. A lot of people are saying don't use hashtags. Hashtags is how videos are found. Because hashtags, like you type in Titanic on YouTube, if I have hashtag Titanic in my video, mine will be one of the first to come up. Like that's how you
That's
do
how
it.
it right.
Hashtags are very important, and definitely tags as well is another thing. It's not similar to hashtags, but it's just another way. And when you're uploading the video, YouTube tells you to do these things. So, they're kind of holding your hand through the process, showing you what you do. So for anyone really, it's easy enough to start, and eventually it will find its way to the algorithm.
Yeah. It is a very tough, because it's such a saturated market.
Yeah.
But one of the, I suppose, in your industry, it's so niche that, you're not going to have the same amount of competition as you would in different areas.
Yeah, definitely. Like if someone was uploading videos, like gaming videos or something, hundreds of thousands of people do that, you know. But it definitely, for me, I'm kind of lucky that it's niche and that I can, there's only a couple of people who do it, and we all kind of know each other well in the community. We get on with each other, and that's a nice feeling too, because we can help each other out with projects and stuff, and we promote each other's work through our own followers as well.
And what I presume, I've seen a couple of your videos that have 1 million plus views. So what is your highest? Is it?
It's coming up to, I think, 7 million on a single video. Yeah,
that's nuts, isn't it? When you think about that, do you think that's like? Would you think, or do you know the stats? Is that 7 million or different people, or are people rewatching this stuff? Do you think
they changed recently how like YouTube views work? So back in the day, it was kind of, if you clicked on a video and then you refresh the page, the views would keep going up. But they saw the people kind of abusing that, and they were like, okay, we don't want people getting free views on the video. So now it kind of works as one person, one view, and it resets every week. So like if they go in, so if they go in and watch it in a following week, it'll give you another view. But I would like to think that it is 7 million individual people. That would be a nice feeling.
Yeah, it's amazing. As I said, fantastic work. So then let's move on then to, you've done a bit of acting.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us a bit about that.
It was more kind of voice acting, especially, 'cause, I was buying equipment for doing the animations. I had a decent microphone at the time. I was able to do some voice work at home. I was in a few short films, just kind of small bits and pieces every day, now and then. I never set foot in doing acting during the school musicals. It was something I kind of regretted not giving a go. I was trying the acting side too, but I wouldn't have been able to shuffle both at the same time.
Yeah.
But definitely, when I did the Gaiety School of Acting for 2 years, and it was really interesting, because, you learn kind of a lot of things in that, and it was really kind of like welcoming place, and got to work with some great people on that as well.
Okay, and you were involved with the film Anne in Boyle. Tell us about that.
So it was I think I had just finished my leaving cert, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, because it was the summer, and it kind of got ear that there was a production crew coming to Boyle that were going to shoot this film, and I knew a few people that I kind of got a few people that were a few years ahead of me in college. They had been in college a few years, and they had got work placement on this film, and they were looking for people to kind of help out with aspects in the production. And I was like, yes, absolutely, because I hadn't gone to college yet, and if I was able to have something under my belt, in professional production, then absolutely I would do it. So I got in kind of, and I was doing art department and props. So setting up kind of the scene, making sure all the props are there, making sure that the actors, if they're supposed to have anything in their pockets, that they're in the pockets before the camera starts rolling. But it was a brilliant, really professional production, great crew, great cast, and really well made film, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, what did it feel like seeing a proper kind of production like that in Boyle?
Yeah, it's brilliant, and we've been so lucky to see some of it in the past as well. With Moon Boy, I was maybe 7 or 8 when Moon Boy was being filmed originally in Boyle, and I remember seeing all the big cameras and the big, trucks loading all the stuff. It's really exciting kind of seeing it, and it brings a great buzz around the town. Everyone kind of comes out to watch it, and I remember with Anne, every day we did have kind of crowds, kind of just, they want to see what's going on, and it's just nice to see people taking an interest in it.
It is, yeah. And it was a good movie, hard hitting, but I think very good story, you know, powerful story.
I think it was important that it was told, you know, that younger generations, not, you know, that it is something that gets talked about. Like, I think it was bad that it was kind of put aside for so long.
Yes,
And, you know, I think it's important that it gets, you know.
I suppose maybe due to the nature of it with family involved, that it needed a bit of time to, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but no, very important, very hard-hitting movie as well. Do you still do commissions around Boyle and stuff like that?
I do, yeah. I just finished one recently. It was for the county council. They were doing a climate action project, and they needed it was a very unique one. They needed a bumblebee flying around County Roscommon, looking at all these, like, you know, solar panels, windmills, kind of all that. And it was kind of a mix of, like, it was a mix of animation and real footage as well. And it was a really unique one, but I was really glad to do it because it was just so different to what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And that was one I really enjoyed.
And do you enjoy doing local work for maybe even businesses or people you know, or do you find that kind of like, nah, it's too close to home?
No, it's I actually prefer it more because I feel like there's better communication when it comes to kind of like making out a plan. You know, especially if it's here local, I can meet them face to face and talk about it. You know, we can sit down and make a plan instead of being back and forth over emails or over a phone. And there was one project I did a couple of years ago for the Brothers of Charity in Boyle. They needed a project put together, so they filmed all the stuff, but they needed to edit it, and they needed a bit of animation as well. So I was more than happy to put together that for them.
That's brilliant, yeah. So I'd like to move on then to the hot air balloons because, as I said, that's when I saw one of you. Was it one or two videos you'd put together?
Put two together,
and they were like fantastic. I'm sure anyone that has seen any photos or that will have seen that video as well because it did really well. So did you, to start that off, because people think, oh, that's great, I'm going to get out the drone now next year. I have a drone myself and I've done loads of stuff out in the park, but I knew you have to go down the permission route. So maybe just put that out there, because I know you did say it on one of your videos, you had to get proper permission from the authorities to fly that.
So when it comes to flying a drone around kind of an airspace that's controlled, you know, because on a normal day, you'd have no problem flying a drone around Lough Key, you know, but these hot air balloons, they're classified as aircraft, and the IAA, or the Irish Aviation Authority, you know, they don't want you to fly a drone into a balloon. You know, it's not ideal for anyone. You lose your drone and the balloon, you know,
loses someone.
Yeah. But it's very important that you get the proper permission. Even, you know, I just remember thinking, you know, we had the presidential election back around that time, and we had Jim Gavin running. He was a member of the IAA, and he had a drone follow him around Dublin, and he got in trouble for that, and he worked for the IAA. So I think it's really important to kind of make sure, if you're putting a drone up, you know, make sure you know where you're putting it up, make sure you're allowed to put it up in that place, and, you know, follow all the rules and you'll have a great time.
Yeah. And what drone did you actually use?
So I used the DJI Mini 4 Pro was the one I used for that,
And then you edited in something like...
I put it in Resolve.
Resolve, okay. Yeah. And, okay, so I mean, I've seen it. Anyone that hasn't seen it, I'll put a link to that as well. But what response did you get after posting that? Because it went more or less semi-viral anyway, from what I remember. Locally, it went viral, obviously.
I think and that's what I was aiming for. I wasn't really, you know, I wanted the local people to see, because I remember the first day I went out, because, you know, we were fortunate to have a few days of it, but not every day they went up because of weather. But the first day that they actually did go up, I was there that morning, and it was a lovely clear day, and, you know, everyone was able to see them. But I think the reason that one of them went viral was the second day they went up, it was completely foggy.
It was.
You couldn't see a thing.
Yeah.
And I was able to put the drone above the fog, so you were able to see basically these balloons floating above a blanket of fog.
It was perfect that day. It was literally perfect. So it was. I was doing the photography for Lough Key for the week, so I was out there every day. The 2 flights, I think there was actually six flights in total. There were 2 days that there was no goes. But so to move on to the photography, you have an eye for photography as well. So how does that feed into, you know, I suppose for animation side of things, for filmmaking, it all kind of goes under the one umbrella.
Yeah, you know, the rules kind of apply to all of them, when, you know, especially when you're setting up a scene and you have to take like lighting and stuff into effect, you know, whether you're doing it for an animation or you're taking a picture outside, you know, you kind of follow the same rules. You know, you want to make sure that you've got the good lighting. You want to make sure that, you're positioned right and all that. Yeah. So definitely, it kind of all locks in together in a circle, and
And do you are you artistic? Do you draw?
not really. No, I remember. I used to when I was younger. I used to love drawing, but like I wasn't particularly good at it. But
Create music?
a little bit over COVID, a little bit, just
Right.
just kind of throwing in a few samples and stuff together. But yeah, I remember when we were still in school and we had the kind of career guidance, to try and see what you were going to do when you were older. I remember the teacher telling me, it was like, yeah, you kind of like to do everything that's like hands on, and yeah, that's what I do see. Like whether it's like film and stuff, or I like making things as well. Like making miniature models and stuff. Like, and it's nice to kind of be able to
Yeah.
do all that.
Okay. Interesting. And when did you do your Leaving Cert? What year?
So it was 2021 was our year. So it was the second year of kind of that. It was the lockdown 2. So it was the
Yes.
second kind
Okay.
of wave.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a very weird time because we only found out kind of a few weeks or maybe a month before that we had the option to either sit or take the predicted grades. So yeah, it was definitely a different scenario to what we were used to seeing.
And you had to choose to sit or the predictive grades.
Yeah.
So did you choose?
So I sat a few of them and then I took predicted on some of the other ones. So I sat the ones I was more confident in doing well in, and then I took the predicted in the rest. Yeah.
And how? Like I always ask this question as well. What's a standout memory from the COVID years that stands out for you?
I think it was that first week when we were all sent home, because we were in school when they announced that like you need to leave and go home and stay at home essentially. And I remember being in class, we had all been just given access to Microsoft Teams because there was rumors going around, oh, the school is going to close, you're going to have to go home, but nothing had officially been said yet. And we were all sitting in the classroom, and then the teacher got a notification and put up Leo Varadkar on the projector, basically telling us all, everywhere's closing, you need to stay home, social distancing, all that. And I remember that vividly so well, because we all thought it was great at the time. Oh, a week off school, phenomenal. And then a week turned into 2 weeks, 2 weeks turned into a month, nearly turned into a year. Then at that point, it was.
It did, yeah. At one stage. And how do you think then, David, lockdown changed your social life, especially as a young fella at that age?
Yeah, so like it was very different not being able to like see any of the lads or stuff at the time, because we would have always been doing stuff, after school, when we were all back in school, but not being able to kind of go anywhere with anyone, all the shops closed, couldn't go to the cinema, couldn't, do anything really. It was a big difference, but we kind of adapted. We all kind of, we got online together. We do kind of video calls. We play games together. There were some great games that came out over COVID, and we all kind of, got on to them, and we'd spend hours playing them into the night. So that was a nice kind of aspect of it.
And is there one thing that you learned, or you're glad you learned about yourself during that period?
I think it was definitely, when it kind of rolling back to the YouTube channel, because there was major growth during lockdown. I think that's because everyone was at home, they had time to watch videos. And I think that's kind of when I decided that's something I want to stick with it, because, I'd originally only started the channel, let's see how these 6 years go from start of secondary school to the end. And we were coming up to the end of secondary school at this time. And, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep doing it after that. But, when I was seeing the growth and, I was like, this is something I want to stick with and I want to keep doing it.
That's great. And then looking forward, David, where do you want to see Blue Star Line go in, the next 5 years? Do you have plans to grow it? Do you have plans to diverse into something else?
Yeah, I think definitely, I definitely keep Starlight Media or the secondary kind of stuff on the ball as well, So we're kind of trying to keep the animations going. I'd love to see, more commissions, working with more people, whether it's locals or, around the world, on documentaries and stuff like that. And, kind of evolving over time. Like I've just decided actually in the last few days that I'm going to move to a new rendering engine. So I'm going to try and teach myself some new tricks, upgrade the visuals even more, and kind of work on new stuff again.
Stay ahead of the game
exactly,
as well. Yeah, because that's what you have to do. You know, at the end of the day, it's providing an income, and you sit in your laurels then it can get stagnant and someone else can catch up with you.
Exactly.
Just before I wrap up, a few quick fire questions.
Sure.
Best advice you ever got, Dev?
Take your time. Take your time is definitely one. Just when it came to just everything in general, whether it's making videos or just life in general, take your time. Don't rush anything.
One thing you wish you started doing earlier?
I think kind of getting into the kind of animation and the computers, because, I'm seeing people these days growing up and, they're able to do stuff nearly that I'm doing. And, they're way younger than me. And I'm like, wow, it's incredible how quick they can pick it up. So I definitely would have loved to kind of start the animation bit a bit earlier, even though I did start it relatively young. But
yeah.
Yeah.
And what is the most underrated thing about growing up in Boyle?
I think people thought that, when I went to college and I told them I was from Boyle, they didn't really know what Boyle is, but I think it's something to be proud of. The town so much has come out of the town, especially recently, when, I was able to show them the productions we worked on. We had Moon Boy, we had the Banshees of Inisherin, we have Brendan Gleeson even has a connection to Boyle, phenomenal man. He's been in various productions all over the world. And, I think when you show them that, then they realize, Boyle is Boyle's on the map. I think that's important that people know that.
Yeah, because anytime I do say to someone I'm from Boyle, especially if I'm out traveling or that, and what part of Ireland I'm from Boyle, you wouldn't know, but you probably know Chris O'Dowd.
Exactly, that's it. Yeah.
So, and they're like, maybe, and then you just say Bridesmaids or something like, oh right, so
yeah.
Then there's that connection. So
yeah.
But what Boyle landmark would you never get sick of photographing or videoing?
I think Castle Island.
Yeah, I knew that.
Even in the drone videos, it's like the first shot of the video. When the video opens, you just see the Castle Island. Yeah, I think it's just an amazing that it's just there on the island. I've been out to it several times on kayaks and out on boats, and I take the drone out there too. And it's just a lovely. It's just lovely to look at, in all types of weather, whether it's a sunset or fog, you can get great pictures with it.
Oh, absolutely. And then what do you hope Boyle will be like in 20 years? Do you have any aspirations for the town, economically, structurally, whatever?
Well, yeah, I think we've had some great news recently, for the town. We've got Aldi on the way, which is absolutely phenomenal. I think that's going to bring great footfall to the town. We've even got some kind of improvements going on with the train station. They're building a new bridge, and we have a new library coming as well.
That's right. And the Lough Key got big developments.
They got big funding as well. I think it's great to see more and more is being brought to Boyle, and I'd love to see it kind of continue. I want to see more of that. Essentially, I want to see it grow because it's a beautiful town, and especially with Lough Key and everything. There's so much to do.
Yeah,
and there's great people here as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think just my last question before we wrap up is, what is one memory of Boyle that you will always carry with forever, and why is it so meaningful?
I think it was during the time of Moon Boy, when they were filming it, and getting to meet Chris O'Dowd and getting to meet all the actors who were there, but especially Chris O'Dowd, because he's of course from Boyle himself, Boyle man. So to see him kind of, go off, do great things, but then come back to the town and do that was phenomenal. And, even watching back Moon Boy it's a great show.
It is, yeah.
And yeah, definitely love that.
And he's always great for promoting the town, as everyone knows. I think that's it, Dave. I think we've covered most of what I wanted to get from the episode. So thank you very much for taking the time. I wish you all the best in your business, and undoubtedly people will be seeing more of your content, I'm sure, in the foreseeable future. So thanks very much, David.
Thanks for having me.